Hello students, welcome to the class. All of us must have faced some situations in our life when we were in some sort of crisis, when we felt distressed and unhappy. Probably an initial reaction would be wanting to be left alone. But immediately or some time after that, all of us feel the need for some sort of support, for someone to help us out. Even if not materially or physically, we at least need someone to listen to us, someone who can help us ventilate our feelings, and someone who can say that I am there for you. This, in other words, means that we as human beings are social animals and we essentially require social support. Bringing social support to the field of stress. All of us know that people who have greater perceived coping resources are in a better position to deal with stress. And social support is in fact one of the greatest personal coping resources that an individual can possess. This social support may be provided by a number of persons, for instance friends, family, acquaintances, colleagues, associates, and a lot more. Although the concept of social support has been widely researched and a number of definitions of social support have emerged, still no single definition of this concept exists. However, we can use the definition of Brannan and Feast, who provide quite a comprehensive one. They define social support as referring to the variety of material and emotional support that a person receives from others. Now, generally, people who have a high level of social support also have broader social networks and a large number of social contacts, whereas people who are relatively socially isolated also possess a correspondingly low degree of social support. Although this is generally the situation, this is not the gospel truth either. Many a time, in spite of having a great degree of social contacts and social networks, we find that the number of people willing to offer us real assistance are quite few. This brings us to the important concept that it is not just the quantity but also the quality of social support that matters. And at times, even people having few sources of social support, but sources that are good and closely knit, such as a very good family and very good friends, can receive a substantial amount of social support. Now we come to the all-important question: how does social support contribute to stress reduction? Social support can contribute to stress reduction by means of the three broad functions that it undertakes. Firstly, social support can provide us tangible support. This tangible physical or direct support is in most cases provided by people who are very close to us, for instance our family or friends or close colleagues and associates. And it generally involves direct physical benefits, for instance material or financial assistance, or an important assistance, that is assistance in the form of time, people who spend time for you gathering relevant information, doing important paperwork for you, taking care of children, buying grocery, running errands, and doing things for you which you are likely to neglect when under stress. The second form of support that social support systems provide is in the form of informational support. This is a very vital support because in any stressful situation, what we need first so as to cope with it is information. What the situation is about, how is it, and what can we do for it. In such situations, our social support systems can provide us information by gathering relevant information and sharing it with us. Further, they can also give us ideas of how to deal with the stressful situation. They can provide us alternative ideas if the previous ideas fail. And finally, they can provide us solutions as also support to bring these solutions into action. A third form of support that social support systems put forward, and perhaps the most important form of support which we usually neglect, is emotional support. Social support systems are the place where we will get a lot of nurturance, care, affection, assurance, and a feeling of being valued, a feeling of belonging, a feeling of acceptance, a feeling that whatever may happen in our life, however big the stressor may be, there will be people for us. This kind of emotional support is most important, especially in situations of chronic and severe stress, for instance, chronic illnesses. In such situations, no amount of material or physical support will be able to bring a sure shot and immediate solution. What we need at this time is the emotional support so as to give us the strength to see through the situation which is prolonged. Social support in any form that I have mentioned, that is either tangible and physical or informational or emotional, we must understand plays an important role in dealing with stress, and it is because of social support that we can actually engage in positive and constructive coping. Now that we know what social support is all about and who provides this social support, we go to an important factor which is most important in psychological studies, measuring social support. There are two broad ways of measuring social support. One is engaging in structural measurements, the other is engaging in functional measurements. Now, structural measurement of social support tend to measure the structure of the social contacts and social networks and social relationships that we have. For instance, the number of social contacts we have, whether they are primary or extended, or whether they are interlinked, and the kind of interlinkages between them. For instance, measuring your social support by using a structural perspective will involve measuring the number of social support systems you have, the number of friends or family or acquaintances or colleagues who are likely to help you. Secondly, it will also involve measuring whether they are primary, such as close family and friends, or extended, in case of relatives or acquaintances, perhaps who are far away. Further, it will also involve examining the interlinkages between them, the extent to which your friends or family or acquaintances know each other, or the extent to which they can communicate or interact in some way and come together to support you. A second form of measuring social support involves a functional measurement of social support. This form of measurement analyzes the function of your social support systems. For instance, the extent to which they can provide tangible or physical support, or material aid or financial assistance, the extent to which they can provide information, the extent to which they can emotionally support you, and the number of people who can provide each of these categories of support. We must, however, remember that the structural and functional aspects of social support are not closely related with each other. However, both of these aspects are closely related to the experience of stress. Now we come to a very important concept, that is, what is the relation between social support and health? We know that stress, especially the distressing component of stress, can have extremely negative consequences for both our physiological as well as psychological well-being. Secondly, we also know that social support modulates the extent of stress we experience and how we cope with it. These two statements also indicate an indirect as well as direct relationship between social support and health. Researchers believe that people who possess a good degree of social support and strong social networks generally are healthier as compared to people who are relatively socially isolated with fewer supports. Research by Wills in 1998 also revealed a link between social support and mortality. He found higher mortality rates among people who had lesser social support and lower mortality rates among those who had higher levels of social support. Further studies by Berkman and Syme revealed a high relationship between social support and mortality among both men and women. And this relationship was most evident in the age group which comprises young adulthood, middle adulthood, and just after, that is 30 to 49 years of age. These research studies reveal that social support has an important linkage with the individual's lifespan. An important way in which social support relates with health is through the buffering hypothesis. We know that social support provides us a buffer against stress, and this buffer in fact extends to all the ill effects of stress, that is illnesses and diseases. This buffering effect of social support may work through three routes. The first is through health-related behaviors, the second, appraisal and coping, and the third, a moderation of the physiological stress response. Firstly, we deal as to how social support promotes health-related behaviors. Research has revealed that people who have supportive social networks and people around them who are interested in their welfare are more likely to be encouraged by these people to behave in healthy ways during a stressful situation. They are encouraged to maintain their health, to seek medical advice if necessary, not to neglect positive health behaviors, and not to engage in behaviors that are risky for both their physiological and psychological well-being. For instance, you may have noticed even during relatively minor stressors such as examinations, you tend to forget the most important things, for instance, to eat on time, to go about your regular exercise, and you often end up eating irregular meals and eating high-calorie food. And those of you who have friends and family around you would have known that you always have people who keep prodding you to maintain your health, to eat on time, and to maintain healthy behaviors so that the examination stress doesn't take a toll on your health. On the other hand, people who do not possess such social support systems have no one who can encourage them to engage in healthy behavioral practices during times of stress. Hence, they are more likely to engage in negative health practices, they may neglect their health, and they may also engage in risky behaviors such as substance abuse or alcohol abuse or other behaviors such as fast driving and so on. These unhealthy health practices may further in themselves become sources of stress, and so also the risk activities that an individual undertakes may in itself become a source of stress. The second way in which social support engages with health and protects health is through appraisal and coping. People who know that they have a strong network of social support and who know that help is available in case they need it tend to appraise the stressful situation in more positive ways. They feel that the stressful situation is less threatening and less harmful because even if it is a major stressful situation, they have the resources with them to cope with it. On the other hand, people who have lesser social support are likely to appraise the stressful situation as more threatening and harmful, thereby leading to an increase in stress. Research by Uchino and Garvey in 1997 revealed that the knowledge of the existence of support systems proved to be extremely useful in reducing stress even when those support systems are not actually used. Moreover, even in the actual coping process, people who have a wider social network and wider social contacts are better positioned to cope with stress. For instance, they have more avenues to seek help, there are more avenues from which ideas and possible solutions to the problem may come. They have a greater flexibility to change the solution to the problem in case the first strategy doesn't work out, and they also have greater resources to implement these new solutions, thereby leading to a more positive and constructive coping and a reduction in stress. A third manner in which social support interacts with health is through the moderation of the physiological stress response. Since we know that the existence of social support leads to a more positive appraisal of stress, it automatically means that people having a good support system are more likely to see the stress as something which can be overcome, and consequently their physiological stress response will be quite less. On the other hand, people who cannot see such a support system existing are more likely to react to the stressful situation in extreme physiological ways, leading to a hampering in the functioning of their physiological systems and consequently leading to greater stress. Now we shall analyze the relationship of several factors such as marriage, gender, age and ethnicity to social support. First, let us deal with this concept of marriage and social support. A happy marriage can be a tremendous source of social support, and most of the psychologists agree on this notion, because you have someone who can provide you companionship and support and someone who will be there in the same way all through your life. However, although happy marriage is a source of social support, the benefits are not the same for both men and women. In fact, men stand to benefit more from a happy marriage as compared to women. A probable reason for this interesting phenomenon is that women generally are expected to fulfill a greater degree of caregiving role both within the context of marriage and in the larger context of family, and this sometimes happens at the cost of ignoring their own needs. Further, the greater benefits of social support that men enjoy within a marriage also means that they are likely to be more affected by the death of a spouse as compared to women. Although women do not gain equal social support as compared to men within the context of marriage, they tend to gain a lot of social support from other contexts. Women tend to build large social networks and a number of social contacts which help them in many ways, especially during critical situations such as the loss of a spouse. Now we examine the relation of gender with social support. Research evidence suggests that social support is more important for women as compared to men, and women who have a low degree of social support show a greater degree of illness, disease and mortality as compared to men. However, another drawback that was observed was that when women tend to build up an excessively large degree of social contact and a social network, there is increasing stress in the form of assistance support. That is, just as you receive social support, your social support system expects you to give them support, which can at times be a source of stress. We come to the third concept, that is the relationship between age and social support. Research conducted on older men and women, that is 65 years and above, revealed that for both men and women, the need for social support increases with age, and the benefits of social support are most among geriatric clients. What is more important is that geriatric people require a greater deal of emotional social support, that is the presence of friends, family and relatives, rather than the provision of physical or material social support in the form of finances or other medical facilities. The last relationship that we are studying in this context is that between ethnicity and social support. We all know that certain cultures, for instance Asian cultures or the Mexican American cultures, are collectivist cultures. They believe in developing extended and close family relationships as also social relationships, and consequently they are likely to experience a greater degree of social support. On the other hand, people in individualistic cultures such as the Euro-American cultures are likely to experience a lesser degree of social support. Fact that social support is extremely important for our survival, and the fact that it helps us to deal effectively with stress makes it important for us to understand as to how we can increase our social support resources and mobilize social support. The first question is, can social support be improved? And the answer to this question is yes, it can be. And there are two broad strategies for this. The first strategy involves working on and enhancing our existing support systems. This may include identifying those support systems such as family or friends who are assisting you and trying to improve the relationships that you share with them through interpersonal communication and interpersonal give and take, as also by changing your behaviors, attitudes, thoughts and moods in positive ways. The second would be to garner more sources of social support, to build up new social contacts and networks by engaging in social situations in manners that are positive. A second option would be the development of social support networks. This may involve restructuring of existing networks to form social support groups. Now, social support groups are specific groups usually consisting of people who face similar forms of stress. For instance, there are support groups for people caring for Alzheimer's patients, or there are support groups for people who have a mentally retarded or disabled child in the family, or are suffering from some other chronic illnesses such as cancer. The best part of such a support group is that the individual is able to gain a lot of emotional support, and that too from people who are suffering something similar to what he is undergoing, leading to a great deal of identification. Apart from providing emotional support, such support groups can also provide you vital information because they have gone through the experience and they can give you vital insights on how to deal with this stressful situation. Let us go over all that we have studied today. we have understood that we are social animals. Even though at times we may say that we can do it all alone, let us remember that we are essentially social animals and we require social support. Secondly, we have understood that social support plays an important role in helping us deal with stress successfully. Thirdly, we have understood how social support can be measured. Fourthly, we have also understood the relationship of social support with other indicators such as health and disease. Finally, we have understood the relationship between various aspects such as marriage, age, gender, ethnicity, and their relationship with social support. Towards the end of this chapter, there are certain points that we essentially need to keep in mind. Firstly, just a mere increase in the number of social contacts or social networks does not ensure that you will have a correspondingly large amount of social support. So, when you are building social support networks and when you are analyzing what kind of social support you have, remember that quality is as important as the quantity. Moreover, it has been an accepted fact that people who are unpleasant, who are hostile, who are aggressive, and who are difficult to deal with face a lot of problems in developing and sustaining social relationships. So, if you have any of such behaviors, make sure that you overcome it and deal with people in a positive and interactive manner so that you can both build up and sustain social support networks. Thirdly, we can take a cue from women because research finds that women tend to have large amounts of social support and social support networks. What is the reason for this? They tend to maintain a style of friendship, cooperation, give and take, interaction, including both verbal and non-verbal cues that helps in the initiation and maintenance of social relationships. So, if you want to maintain social support systems, take a cue from what women do. Finally, remember that just forming a social support network will not ensure that you will always have it with you. Make sure you sustain it, make sure you help the people you help you, and such interactional relationships can help you deal with stressful situations.